So building an effective retail inventory management system is going to be one of the key things from a technology point of view. And your order management has to be robust to make sure that all of these things are fulfilled.
Hello and welcome everyone to the next episode of the Analytics India Magazine podcast, Simulated Reality. Today we have with us the Director of Data Science at Lowe's, one of the biggest retailers in the world, Swaroop Shivaram. Swaroop, welcome. How are you today?
Hey, doing good, Kashyap. Thanks for inviting me. Super excited to be part of this conversation.
Fantastic. So, today's conversation is going to be around smart retailing or like smart retail shops or smart shops, right? I just realized, I was just reminiscing about the times when I used to, as a kid, go to Kirana stores to buy a pack of Lays or a pack of chips or get this ice candy and all of that. And the Kirana store guy knew me really well. After a point, I also realized that my mom kind of writes down the due, whatever money is due. So I realized that I could just go there, not even pay him, just write the dues, and my mom pays it later. It just reminds me of some of the fond memories of going to a shop, right? As we grew up, we now have bigger stores in place, but they're also like I like to go to a store, but today the technology is changing in such a way that you can just probably click a few things on your app, and within 10 minutes, under 10 minutes, you will have the groceries at home. While the retailer system has been, has been pretty functional. What were some of the challenges that you faced that you thought that in your experience the introduction of technology can solve or make it easier? How can the experience be better? So why was the need for technology is my kind of primary question to start off with, felt.
Yeah, sure, Kashyap. I think there's a lot of challenges in the retail industry, keeping the macroeconomic side of things, of inflation, economy, keeping those things aside. Today, when a consumer wants to get into a store, the shopping patterns have completely changed. They are, rather than change, I say it's been evolving, right? Today, as you just told, customer would like to buy a product online, but at the same time, they also want to feel the product before they make that decision. Now they want to go to the store, but again, they don't want to stand in a longer queue to do the checkout of the product because that's not a convenience they think, right? So that's where the technology comes in. A lot of the retailers are building, the self-checkout systems where you could just go ahead and buy a product. You can check out on your own without the cashier being there, right? Same way, I think there's one more practice which I've seen most of the retailers doing well is you buy online, but go and pick up the product in the store so that it is convenient to you and you don't really go out and wait in the queue, right? Now, this actually is a different shopping pattern altogether, which we have not seen in the past, and now that we have started to see more of these things, right? To enable this to happen, the technology comes into the picture. You're trying to connect the online versus the physical world experience and make it more seamless, right? Your shopping journey starts from one point, but it ends up into a different point when you go and buy the product. Now, when you have so many channels to buy a product, obviously your inventory becomes extremely important. When you go to a store, you want to make sure that you see the product there, right? So building an effective retail inventory management system is going to be one of the key things from a technology point of view. And your order management has to be robust to make sure that all of these things are fulfilled timely, right? And on top of it, all of this runs on an infrastructure which should be in a position to scale up and down based on how the sales are going in, right? I think that's where I think the technology comes in terms of to address all of these challenges. How can the technology enable to make sure that we are adhering to some of the experiences what the customer would like to have as part of the shopping journey. So that's where the technology is helping us out.
The problems that you mentioned, right, are some of the problems that like a big retailer store, retail store might face, right? Were we as a society, or should we as a society have not moved to such a big stores in that first place? I want to come to the technology part of it soon. But then while the kiranas work just fine, right? Or probably I don't know how it worked in the US. I'm talking from an Indian context. Uh, but probably, you know, there was a smaller portion, like a smaller community reaching out to the local kiranas, and then why was there a need for a big store, and then probably has the need for technology felt because we moved to a big store, and would the kiranas have worked finer, better, or how do you see it? How do you see the evolution of these stores?
No, I think if you look at the kiranas, right, I mean, I think they definitely worked out well, right, in a way that, you know, for my parents, when they used to go for shopping, it was the time where they used to interact with people.
Yeah,
So
that
today,
touch is gone.
yeah, that touch obviously is gone with all these things, right? You know, and at the same time, when we talk about bigger retailer, I think it's more of the options you are getting when you want to buy things, right? Maybe that might something you are not getting in a smaller retail kirana stores, what we are calling out, right? Yeah, I mean, I think that things have changed in a way that even if I talk to my dad, he would rather go to a shop which he knows. He goes and talks to them for half an hour and does the shopping, and they build that relationship, right? Yeah, and that has completely changed in terms of getting into a bigger retailers, and that also brings its own pros and cons, as we were talking about. Yeah.
Correct. No, I think that's fair, and I don't think we are here for a philosophical conversation. We are here to talk about technology. But I was just curious as to, you know, what your opinion is on it. But moving to some of the concepts of smart stores, right? What is a smart store? Because, you know, everything is becoming smart these days. I mean, it was becoming 10 years back. Nowadays, we are going beyond smart, and there's a lot of technologies. But what, in a lot of sense, you mentioned that there's inventory and the longer queues. From a broader perspective, if we have to kind of draw the line, where do these smart applications kind of fit in when it comes to building or improving the overall efficiency of a retail store?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think, see, when I say smart store, smart technology, the purpose I feel are two things, right? One is, with the technology, can you give a better shopping experience for the customer who come into a store? That's one.
Customer experience.
And then the second part is, you know, how are you, you know, allowing your employees to be more productive to make the decision and then do help the customer to, you know, get the experience what they want, right? So I think those are the two, you know, goals, I would say, from a smart store point of view. One is customer, one is the employee who are in the store, right?
Okay.
Now, a lot of retailers have been trying out, experimenting a lot of technologies to use the smart store. We talk about all the different types of IoT sensors, the RFID sensors, and, you know, the BLE sensors, and the cameras and computer vision all comes into the picture. In terms of, now, if you look at cameras itself, traditionally the cameras in a retail used to be more to make sure that the asset protection or the theft or, you know, those kind of things, more towards surveillance. But today, I think the cameras and computer vision are going beyond surveillance to help, you know, to improve the operations of the stores. Couple of examples I would say is, you know, the shelf monitoring, right? Today, you go to a store, if you don't see your favorite product on the shelf, you get disappointed and you may not even get into that store again.
Definitely.
Now, I think this is where retailers are trying with cameras, drones and robots, whatnot, where you could actually get an image of the shelf and then detect what products are there in the shelf, what are the empty areas, you know, and can you send an alert or, you know, somebody to go ahead and restock it. Most of the time, the product will be there in the back room. You know, due to the process inefficiency, it may not even have come to the shelf. So this is where, again, the technology helps out in terms of, you know, one, monitoring the shelf to make sure the products are there. And also the product location matters a lot in a bigger retailer. You're talking about 100 to 200,000 square feet area, where you have so many products and you need to really know where the products are located. So we basically call it as a planogram compliance, where, you know, every product is supposed to be kept in a particular location in a particular way in the store. And again, cameras could be used to see whether the products are complying to the standards or not, right? And then these are more in terms of improving the customer experience. At the same time, there are a lot of basic things in terms of, you know, you see a long queue and then you have cameras there and then in the checkout registers, and then, you know, the technology can enable you and say that, hey, I see there are too many people here, can you just open up more registers so that, you know, people can have a more seamless checkout experience, right? I think that's where the smart stores are getting into in terms of making sure that, as I told, two things in terms of improve the shopping experience of the customer by using these technologies, and at the same time empower your employees to make right decision at the right time.
Correct.
To move from there.
So essentially, there's the supply side and the demand side.
Exactly.
Right? Like, so
exactly.
from a demand side, the customer experience, you are trying to make it as easier, as streamlined as possible, so that they get what they want and at a speed.
Exactly.
And at the same time, there is from an efficiency perspective, whoever works in the store, since these stores are so big, kind of managing the data around it. I want to dive a little bit into the computer vision technology of it, right? How does it work? So essentially, there's computer vision as a technology is very broad, right? There are a lot of things in it. So can you walk us a little bit through how this technology kind of works when it comes to and what it entails essentially? Because does computer vision mean grabbing video footage live, or or some kind of a image footage live, and then kind of analyzing it in real time, or it can also be something like just analysis of some of the things. So if you can dive a little bit deeper into the technology aspect of it and help us explain with one or two examples how you're solving these problems, right?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, I think computer vision is a term which has been there for quite a while now. When this whole thing came up early 2000, people were calling more video analytics, and then the AI thing happened, and a lot of things happened in 2012, and in deep learning models and computer vision kind of thing. But essentially, what the technology allows us to do is, given a video, whether it's a live or a recorded video or an images, we can extract information out of the images or videos, right? And now with the information we extract, can we convert that information into an actionable insights? That's how we look at leveraging this technology in various areas within retail, right? If I have to give you an example, maybe if you look at the e-commerce side today, everybody knows how many people visited the e-commerce website, where did they spend most of their time, what all product did they look at, where did they spend maximum amount of time. So this is the clickstream information. We get it in an e-commerce world or a digital world, right? Now, similarly in a physical store, how can we get this information? We call the physical store as brick and mortar, so we call it as brick stream. Basically, like just the way we do it as a click stream in digital, we do it brick stream and thing, right? So we know using cameras, we can know how many people came to the stores, where are they spending most of the time, what are the products they're looking at. Those are some of the insights. With the videos, what we have, we could generate and then provide insight for, let's say, the team who does the product placement. We with the video analysis, we can come to know that, hey, placing a product in this location will actually help us to yield more sales. So those are the kind of insights we could generate from computer vision and then use it for operationalizing some of the capabilities we have. Similarly, there are a lot of other use cases just from a computer vision point of view. One other thing is like you did a marketing promotion where a new product was introduced, and you want to know how good the marketing promo was. After the promo, whether the products people are coming to that location, they're buying the product. How can we do a pre and post analysis of the marketing promo? Again, this is where computer vision can be used to know the footfall in a particular area, and then what was the footfall pre and post the marketing promo, right? A lot of those insights could be done, and a lot of these actionable insights can be done only when we know what is actually happening, and then that's where the cameras and computer vision comes into the picture.
Yeah, and and also, I mean, I really am curious as to how this exactly works. So for instance, you took an example of whether you said, video footage can analyze what are some of the things that people are looking at, or what is their consumer behavior, which kind of departments within the store they kind of visit and all of that, and you try to behave the consumer. How is this data captured? So for instance, whenever I have done data analysis or any kind of this thing, I have used something like a SAS or an R or a Python, right? And for me, what has been there is essentially data frames. So how does that video footage right, turn into data points, into tabular data points, which is essentially analyzed. Can you like dive a little bit deeper into how it exactly works, the mechanism of it?
Sure.
Any example if you can take?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you look at some of the examples which I talked about, let's take the shelf inventory which I talked about, where you give an image of the shelf, you tell whether there's a product present or not, right? So the camera would get you the images, and then once you get the images, so what we typically do is, all these computer vision models are based on something called convolution neural networks, where the images goes through a neural network which would have trained to know that, okay, this is a product, this is an empty space. I think that's how we would have trained the model, by feeding it a lot of data. And now when you actually feed in the real image coming out from the camera, the model will predict that, okay, I see these are the locations where there is a product. And from a technology point of view, there are basically two frameworks which most of the data scientists use extensively, either TensorFlow or PyTorch. Those are more of the framework which actually helps you to train these models and build the models on top of this thing, right? And now again Python or Scala are some of the programming languages we have. But again, coming back to how it works, and once you have the image feed in, you pass it to a neural network which goes through a different layers of the network, and it predicts that, hey, these are the areas where I see a product, these are the areas I don't see a product. Now that's an information which kind of moved from an unstructured data into a structured data. Now you have a tabular data now saying that, okay, at this time from this store, from this location, I know that, okay, there were like 35 products present and there were like 20 or 15 places which was an empty region. Now use that data and then go back and check in your inventory, saying that, because computer vision alone cannot solve end-to-end problem. This is where using the computer vision as one more signal coming out, and then maybe use another additional signals. It could be an RFID or it could be an inventory. Then you go ahead and see that, okay, I see that there are like 10 areas which is empty. Do we have in stock in the back room? And then basically trigger an action, right? Okay. So that's how basically it works.
So essentially, some of those funny memes that the AI memes that I've seen, right? Whether it is a cat or not. Exactly. So similarly, you detect whether there are enough toothpastes in this shelf or
exactly.
not. So let's say a computer captures this thing based on your model, it will detect that there are 12 toothpastes. Over a period of time, these are getting consumed at this rate, so they need to be stacked up at this rate and these kind of things.
Exactly.
So essentially, you keep your shelves filled to a point where there is not too much wastage and there is enough sale as well, and there is product availability at the same time.
So I think there are two parts to this. One is detecting there is a toothpaste, which is we call it as an object detection in computer vision. Then the next one is actually recognizing it. Is this and what kind of toothpaste it is? So that actually gets into the next level of even recognizing what the product is at an SKU level or any of those information. So in a computer vision, typically you have the object detection, recognition, and classification. And segmentation. These are the four concepts which can be applied into any of the use cases which we are talking about.
So then it happens through annotation, like you fed the computer with a series of photos to detect whether this is this brand's toothpaste or not, and the series of this.
Exactly.
I think that's pretty cool. The other thing, other aspect of the smart is the personalization of it, right? So shelves and probably detecting cues might be one thing, but probably that's a relatively easier problem to solve, I would say. But when it comes to something like personalization of stories, like personalizing journeys of an individual visiting the store through this, right? So I've heard this really cool theory, okay? It's called the beer and diaper theory or something like that. I'm sure you've heard it at some point. Like people who buy beer, they end up buying diapers as well, right? And I don't know whether this came through a data analysis, whether this was a data-driven conclusion, but this is something that I just heard, right? Making these derivatives out of this, right? Or segmenting your consumers based on this. And then personalizing their journeys, nudging them to kind of move across, because nudging someone on an e-commerce website to buy this as well as this is very different, but in a real retail store that might present a different challenge, right? So for instance, a person buys something, an object A, they are more likely to buy object B if that is something to derive, as well as then probably how to kind of nudge them to kind of go to object B and buy object B as well. Do you do something like this as well? And if yes, then how does that work? I'm very curious.
See, I mean, I think I've seen some of the retailers trying this out, especially. You're right. I think doing this in a digital context is relatively easier compared to a physical store, where privacy is obviously a concern in terms of who is actually shopping, doing those level of personalization, right? But I've seen some of the retailers experimenting where they do have these digital signages in the store where they do promotion ads and everything, and now you go and stand in front of it. They know what products you have taken, and then they could also suggest the ads which are more relevant to you. So that's one way to do it. Again, as long as there is no compromise on the privacy point of view, I think those are something it still helps the customer to recommend what they would like to have. Like the example what you talked about, the diaper and the beer, right? Maybe you are standing in front of the digital signage, and then there is some recommendation coming. The ads coming relevant to that, right? That's something I've seen some of the retailers doing it. And again, this again goes back into the connecting the digital and then the physical world together, and then coming up with some of those recommendations.
Yeah, would you in that case change the kind of locations of where these particular objects are placed in that, so that journey or something like that?
No, I think that becomes more in terms of the insight what that goes into, let's say, whoever is planning the stores. We typically see a customer journey in a store, how does it go, right? Based on that, is there a recommendation or a change of position of the product placement we could do? I think that's more of an insight which can drive into action, which is more in this case changing the product location, right? So yeah, I mean, I've seen some of the retailers doing it in terms of where exactly the product needs to be located, where they should not be, and obviously this technology helps one to get that insight. The second is also the same technology could be used to validate whether that the changes which you made was effective or not, right? Again, in terms of the footfall or not.
Correct. And I was going to come to the point as well, right? When it comes to personalization around ethics and privacy as well. So for example, if you want to kind of personalize someone's journey, detecting their face and kind of showing that comes a little bit on the becomes questionable on the ethical side. But then overall, without that as well, if a store does not do that, computer vision is continuously needs capturing of faces over a period of time. So there needs to be some strict code of following data privacy and data security patterns. How do you ensure that as a company, as a retailer, if you're collecting this data, this does not in the longer run affect someone's privacy, and then you make the use of technology safely?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are two parts to it. One is more in terms of the being more responsible while building the solution, right? Not every use case we talked about needs a face detection or face recognition. If I just try to give an example, and I was talking to somebody the other day, and the requirement there was just to count the number of people coming to a store. To count the number of people, you don't really need to do face recognition.
But you're still capturing the video of the faces, right?
The images would be captured, but they won't be saved anywhere. They would be just discarded as you process the images. It just gets discarded.
That's what happens?
Yeah, that's what happens. So now, to do that, I was asking why are we doing face detection, and then the response was, the technology allows us to do. I think so. It's important, being more responsible when doing it. One is what the technology will allow you to do, but what is the requirement you are trying to solve. I think that's going to be extremely important as we start looking at some of these solutions to get adopted more in the future. Being more responsible is going to be key, and also there are obviously having a privacy governance body around within the organization will also help us to make sure that just the way how we do software development. Any stage you are building, you're going through a stage gate review, you pass it and then move forward. Having a strong privacy governance to make sure that when you are doing a proof of concept to productionizing, make sure that some of these guidelines are adhered and while building it, right? So part of it is also more being responsible and also bringing some governance.
Yeah, and I think that also depends in a lot of sense on the governments and the kind of policy restrictions that they need to bring in, or frameworks they need to bring in to ensure that some of these technologies, because while the technology is able to, should you do it is something which can be answered very differently by different set of people.
Exactly.
My final question to you is, like, as we go more and more forward and more technology is introduced in it, uh, I am sure that there are still people working in stores despite the kind of these things, but now they're talking about bringing in robots to stack up these things. Will we lose that personal touch, or should we, or what is your opinion? Should we lose that personal touch? Should we keep that personal touch and that, that relations that people going to a store, talking someone, and then, while maintaining that, just work in areas or applications where we enhance the experience rather than replace the human experience of it?
No, I mean, I think I always feel human experience is what finally it will end up in terms of building that relationship with the customer, either it's a big retailer or a small retailer. At the end of the day, what is the level of engagement you have with the customer? And then, help them to get what they want, right? I think that matters. And I don't think the machines would replace that. The technology will enable the employee in the store to do all these things, and they can be more productive by doing it. I don't think the technology would replace the human touch. I think that's going to stay. I think it's going to get better with the use of all this technology which we just talked about.
Fantastic. On that positive note, thank you so much, Swaroop, for coming and giving us insight into what a smart store looks like. It has been a great conversation.
Same here. Thanks a lot, Kashyap.